Hello, everybody. Welcome to JupyterLab Extension Development for Everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Matt. I'll talk a little bit more about myself in a second. Jason, Konstantin. So first, a little bit about communication. Konstantin is going around with some sticky notes for y'all. What we're going to do is ask you to use the red sticky note to stick it kind of on the corner of your laptop here, to kind of like raise a flag if you need some help from an instructor. And we have a green sticky note for helping us know when you're done and everybody is ready to move on. So same thing with the green sticky note, just stick it up on the corner of your laptop to signal that you're ready to move on. Okay, so we're gonna start out with a module called Exploring Extensions.
So we have a bunch of materials that we've prepared. We are so excited to talk to you. It's been a few years since the JupyterLab extension tutorial, and we've updated it for JupyterLab 4 and hopefully made it simpler and easier for you. You'll see one of the things that really distinguishes, I think, JupyterLab from a lot of the other front ends is the extension development system. This is where the brilliance of the community can come in. Here's a QR code that links to our materials. You're welcome to go to these materials. There's some slides, and there's also, here, I'll just click so you can see what it looks like. If I can get it here. I mean, what you'll see when you come to this is a write-up of sort of the things that we'll be going through, including a link to the slides, the instructors, etc. So in the materials, here's a link to the slides. And then all the stuff that we'll be doing today. So back to our slides. All right, so a few questions, first of all, to help us understand the audience here. Raise your hand if you've used JupyterLab. Oh, good. I was hoping most people would raise their hands there. Raise your hands if you've installed any extensions in JupyterLab. Great, fantastic. So I think most users have installed extensions in JupyterLab. Raise your hand if you've written a JupyterLab extension before. Okay, a few. Great, fantastic. By the end of the day, everyone should raise their hand on this one. That's the goal for today. For those of you that have, and raise your hand if you have any Python experience. Okay, understood. Most people have Python experience in this sort of community. Raise your hand if you have JavaScript experience or TypeScript experience. Okay, excellent. Most of the work that we'll be doing today is in JavaScript and TypeScript because it's a JupyterLab extension. JupyterLab runs in the browser front end. It's not necessary to have JavaScript or TypeScript experience, but again, if you have JavaScript or TypeScript experience, can you raise your hand? And keep your hand up. Okay, if you have a problem with JavaScript, look around at your helpers. Okay, you probably turn to the person next to you. It looks like they're fairly well spread around the room. So feel free to ask questions of us as we rove around the room, or the people next to you that said that they understood a little bit about JavaScript and TypeScript as we go through. So first of all, let's start with the basics about JupyterLab, but we're going to be talking it in more technical terms than maybe a lot of times it's talked about. So let's look at a JupyterLab instance. So here is JupyterLab up on the screen. I'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see better. And there's a couple of different parts, and we'll be using sort of the technical terms for the parts of JupyterLab as we go through today. You'll notice that there's a couple of parts on the screen. So up here, we have the menu bar, and these are technical terms that we use in extension writing to talk about where to put different things or where to interface with different parts of the JupyterLab interface. So this is the menu bar up here. This is called the main area. It's where your windows open up and everything. So you can make a new notebook. Remember, you can drag it around. You can split these tabs up in sort of any way you want. This right here is the main area, and the bottom is the status bar. You'll notice there's a few things down there like some git status, and if you have a notebook, let's open a notebook, you'll see like what mode it's in, etc. The status bar gives us information about sort of what's currently happening in JupyterLab. And then we have the side panels. So this is a side panel over on the left. It has like our file browser, all our open kernels and things like that. And there's another side panel on the right. And each of these can be collapsed by clicking on one of the icons The side panel on the right is typically the side panel on the left is typically like global information, like all your files and things, all your kernels, et cetera. And the side panel on the right is typically used to have more specific information about whatever currently is selected. So for example, debugging the current notebook, or the properties of the current notebook, et cetera. So that's sort of how we think about the different parts of JupyterLab. There's a few other areas. If you go to the documentation, you'll see that there's also a down area, a top area, et cetera, different places to put things. And then, of course, in JupyterLab, we have lots of things in these places. So in the main area, we have a lot of tabs with things, activities in them. On the left, we have all these different activities, et cetera. On the right, et cetera. So the way to think about JupyterLab is the basic JupyterLab is just this application framework shell. The shell of where the menu bar is, the sidebars, the status bar, the main area, et cetera. And then everything inside of these areas is provided by an extension, either an extension you install or an extension that comes with JupyterLab. So everything we see here, the menu bar, the file browser, the notebook editor, you know, all of the stuff on the status bar is provided by an extension. And so this is what we're talking about today, is the extension system in JupyterLab, how to put stuff in JupyterLab and have it interact with various components. All right, let's look at some popular extensions for JupyterLab. So let's see, a lot of you have installed extensions, so you probably are familiar with this tab right here, the sidebar, the side panel tab, that lists the currently installed extensions. And then, okay, so first of all, I guess I should say, you know, you have to accept this warning. You know, when you install an extension, you're installing code that's written by some random person out there on the internet, and so you need to be aware that you're going to be running like whatever code that you install on your computer. So you accept the disclaimer, and then you have access to, and you look down here, there's 29 pages worth of extensions. We'll look a little bit later, we'll see that there's 600 to 800, hundreds of extensions that you can install in JupyterLab. And I've installed a few of these, a few extensions here today, just to show a few popular extensions and kind of the things that you can do with extensions. So for example, you can install a theme extension. So here's a theme extension that's pretty popular. It just makes a nighttime mode. I'll go back to the standard mode. You can see there's an extension that, if I can move this over just a little bit, an extension that makes it possible to view different kinds of files. So for example, here's a sample GeoJSON file. It's if we look at it in an editor, I'll close this to give us a little more room. It's just a JSON file that has, you know, coordinates and like features that you would put on a map, et cetera. And you can install an extension that understands this sort of file, GeoJSON, and you can see here, yeah, you can actually render it. So this is provided by an extension, the ability to understand different formats. And there's tons of extensions out there to understand CSV, HDF5, like all sorts of different file formats. But that's provided by an extension. Another extension that's pretty popular is the PyPI extension. So what this does is it provides a way to render new things inside of a notebook. So here it's PyPI, so these sort of interactive widgets that maybe you've heard of. They're, I think, fairly popular. This is provided by an extension. It doesn't come with base JupyterLab, but an extension is able to hook into the JupyterLab system for rendering outputs and say, hey, if I see an output that looks like this, let me render it, and then the extension has control over rendering these dynamic controls and everything. Another example of an extension is this Git extension. So I'm in a Git repo right now, and you see I made some changes to this test IPINB file. This Git extension provides this new widget over here on the side panel, and that gives me information about Git. So we can, and there's other things you can do with extensions. For example, you can replace built-in extensions. There's another extension I didn't install today that replaces this file browser with a different kind of file browser that's like a tree file browser, for example. So you can modify and augment just about any part of JupyterLab with extensions. That's the power of extensions and why we really are trying to help people understand how to build extensions. Let's see if there's any other ones that I want to mention. Yeah, so this is a popular extension. It allows us to, here, if we create, let me close a couple of these and create a new file. It allows us to build, to save our notebooks in a text format instead of a JSON format. A lot of people like to check their notebooks into Git, and sometimes the JSON isn't very easy to read. And so this extension allows us to, save a notebook. So I can save this notebook, but you'll notice that it's a Python file. So I can just open it with an editor, and you can see it's just a Python file, but it presents to the system as a notebook. So this extension is able to tap into JupyterLab and make it possible for a system component like the notebook to save to a different kind of file type. So you can see there's a lot of stuff you can do with extensions here. I think that's maybe gives you an idea of the sorts of things that extensions can do. Augment things in JupyterLab, provide new interfaces for new data in JupyterLab, add widgets that provide new ways of looking at data, and basically fill up any part of the system here. And I mentioned there's 600 to 800 extensions. If you look at JupyterLab 4, okay, let's see, 612 extensions. This is a website. It's not affiliated with Jupyter, but Konstantin, one of our workshop organizers, put this together to easily see all the different extensions available for JupyterLab. And the nice thing is he pulls the download stats and everything, so you can kind of get a nice interface for what's available in JupyterLab. And you can see for JupyterLab 4, 612 extensions, 873 extensions. Some of the extensions haven't been upgraded to JupyterLab 4. They're still available for JupyterLab 3. Tons and tons and tons of extensions. And you can see some of the extensions that we talked about today already. The brilliant thing about JupyterLab is all of these extensions are on equal footing with every one of the built-in extensions. If we go to, I'm just going to go to the JupyterLab codebase. So this is the codebase on GitHub. And look in the packages directory, you'll see a ton of directories. Each one of these directories is an extension, just like any third-party extension. So you see, for example, the document manager. This is sort of a built-in extension for managing documents. Oh yeah, let's make this bigger so you can see. You can see smaller ones like the image viewer, that provides a capability of viewing images in JupyterLab. You can see the markdown viewer. You can see the notebook extension, which provides your notebook editor. You can see the status bar extension that sort of provides an interface for populating that bar down at the bottom. The brilliant thing about the design of JupyterLab is that every one of these extensions is just like any third-party extension. It's just bundled directly in JupyterLab for convenience. Your third-party extensions are on equal footing with these. They have access to the same APIs in JupyterLab. They have access to the same capabilities. In fact, your built third-party extensions that you install in JupyterLab could replace one of them if you like, that file browser. I wish I had a different file browser that behaved this way. You can make a third-party extension that completely replaces the file browser. So the file browser is one of these extensions. Here it is. With your own file browser. So when people install your extension, like JupyterLab can look totally different for them and provide customization capabilities for wherever you're running JupyterLab. So built-in extensions and third-party extensions, the only difference is the built-in extensions are distributed automatically. What we're giving you the power today with writing extensions is the ability to modify and change and augment JupyterLab in exactly the same ways that all the built-in components do. So sometimes we refer to these as the core extensions, the extensions that are bundled. And every now and then we adopt a new core extension to provide a new capability built into JupyterLab. But we also rely on 600 third-party extensions to augment JupyterLab for whatever your use case is. So when we talk about, we're going to sort of peek under the hood a little bit, and we'll do that a lot more as we go through today. When we talk about extensions, there's a couple of different types of extensions that we have. And to understand the different types of extensions, first it's useful to remind ourselves sort of the basic architecture of JupyterLab. We have three different parts, sort of at a high level for JupyterLab. The front end, that's the thing that's the pixels on the screen in your browser. It's coded in JavaScript, and extensions often are just JavaScript things in the browser. There's the server, that's the web server serving up Jupyter to the browser. It's written in Python, and you can extend that as well. In fact, some of our extensions install a component in the server and a component in the front end, and they communicate with each other to provide capabilities for JupyterLab. And then if you start up a notebook or do some coding, then there's a third part of Jupyter called the kernel, and it communicates with the server, and through the server communicates with the front end, and that's how when you, say, write some Python code, it goes to the kernel, runs in the kernel, and then comes back to the front end. So extensions actually, you can augment the capabilities at any part of the stack here. So first of all, the front-end extensions. This is sort of the core extensions, the generic extensions that we talk about when we deal with JupyterLab. They're written in JavaScript, and there's a couple of types of extensions that are fairly common. One type we call the MIME renderer, or the MIME type extension. These are extensions that provide the capability of viewing new kinds of files and new kinds of data. So that GeoJSON extension, for example, was a MIME type extension that says, hey, if I see a file or some data in a notebook that's labeled as GeoJSON, I know how to render it. I'll pop up this JavaScript control, and you'll have a map and all this sort of stuff. Another very common extension type is a theme extension. We saw an example of that as well, that night extension that we switched to. These two, MIME type and theme extensions, are so common that we made it very simple to make just a MIME type extension or just a theme extension. So if you wanted to write one of those, it's actually simpler than the generic extension that we'll be writing today. There's also server extensions to provide capabilities in the middle layer, and where your files are being served. This is often where your files that you're working with, like in the file browser, are. An example of an extension that has both a server and a front-end component is the Git extension. The Git extension, let's see if we can come back and see where were we. Here's JupyterLab. The Git extension has to talk to the server in order to get the file status and the Git status, et cetera. And it also obviously has to talk to the front end because it has to provide this UX component in JupyterLab. So some extensions, let's see, where did we go? Some extensions, a package that you install includes both a component for the server and a component for the front end. And that's what we'll be making today, these packages that are front end and server that provide a component in the server, component in the front end that work together to provide some capability for your users. And we'll peek under the hood a little bit further here and just mention some of the technical terminology we'll see in our tutorial today. An extension, you've been using that word a lot, it's a package. It's a Python package that gets installed and provides some capabilities either to the front end or to the server, et cetera. We'll concentrate mainly on the front end today. Inside of an extension is what we call a plugin. A plugin is a JavaScript object that we provide to JupyterLab, and it's actually the core unit of extensibility for JupyterLab. So we have extensions that are Python packages, and they include some JavaScript, and inside that JavaScript, when it runs, it has a JavaScript object called a plugin, and the plugin is actually what JupyterLab interacts with here. And an extension can have more than one plugin. So you can distribute a package that has like 5 different plugins. And the plugin is sort of the atomic unit of extensibility for JupyterLab. So we'll talk a lot about plugins today. And then a plugin can include widgets. So a widget is like a user interface element. So for example, for the JupyterLab Git, it's the thing over on the side that lists all your Git information. So often what you see happen is that you have a bunch of widgets that are providing some interactive pixels on the screen for the user to interface with, that are bundled up into a plugin, which is the basic atomic unit of interfacing with JupyterLab. And then one or more of those plugins are packaged up into a Python package, and we call that an extension. So extensions contain, which are Python packages, contain JavaScript files that when they're run, create JavaScript objects. Those are called plugins. And then often those plugins contain widgets, which are like the user interface elements on the screen. The big picture here is when you talk to an end user, you often use the word extension because that's what they install, that's what they see in the extension manager. But when you're writing an extension, you often talk about plugins. So the developers care about the plugins. That's you interfacing with JupyterLab in the code level, while the end users are installing those plugins packaged into extensions. We'll get into this, again, a lot more during our actual tutorial.
So first, I'd like you all to check out our website. I'm going to put that up on the screen again here. This is the QR code. For some reason, it's hard to see the website itself. Hold on.
Can you put it on editor?
There we go. So if you need to type it in, here's our URL. There we go. Everybody please jump there. We're going to reference materials that are on this site. Anybody still typing? Okay, I see some thumbs up. Thank you. Okay, so on this website, on the left, we've got a couple of important sections that you'll want to keep an eye on. The first one I'd like to touch is prerequisites. So under the prerequisites section, I assume we've all got laptops. Great job. We also need you to have a Git and a GitHub account. Most importantly, we need you to install a Conda command line interface. If you have Conda or Mamba or MicroMamba installed already, that's awesome. If you have and would prefer to use Pixie, that's great too, but we'll expect you to be self-sufficient in that case. We're going to use MicroMamba commands to set up the dependency environment that we're going to be using for this tutorial. So everybody jump to this prerequisites page. If you click this MicroMamba link, that'll take you to the installation instructions. Slowly. And then you'll be able to find instructions for your operating system. So if you're on Mac, you can use Homebrew. If you're on Linux, you can copy and paste this command. Or on Windows, you can copy and paste this command in PowerShell. I'll give you all a minute to do that. Yeah. If anybody has any issues with installing this software, please use your stickies. Remember the red sticky if you're stuck and you could use some help. Green sticky, you're all good to go. See one green sticky, awesome. Anybody need help? Thanks so much for putting up your green stickies when you're ready. I think we need a few more minutes. developers are standing by if you need it. Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. Just one more minute. So please, if you're stuck on anything, put up that red sticky so we can get to you. Yeah. Good call. One more thing I'd like to point out. If you're using Conda or Mamba, maybe you installed it with Micro Mamba or Mini Forge or Anaconda, please set up Conda Forge as your primary channel. If you installed with Mini Forge, that's already done for you. But if you installed with Mini Conda, we have a link here in the prerequisites document on this line here with some instructions to configure Conda Forge as your primary channel. And that should just be zoom in. How's that? Just running these two Conda config channels. So you'll add the Conda Forge channel and then set the priority here to 0. Okay. Should we give one more minute for that, Konstantin, do you think? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any red stickies, so we're going to move on. Please put up that red sticky now if you need any help. We're going to go into our second module here, which is going to be fully hands-on. In this module, we're going to create a new extension starting from the official extension template. And in that extension, starting from scratch, we're going to implement a new widget for displaying a random image and a caption from a curated set of images. We're going to implement launching the widget from the command palette in the launcher. And we're going to implement a user interaction which enables users to request a new random item from that collection in real time. We have a couple of terms here that we're defining. We have main area widget. This is a widget that opens as a tab or a panel in the main area, which Jason talked about. Oh, zoom in. Thank you. Which Jason mentioned in his last section. So the main area, again, is when you open a new JupyterLab instance, that's where your notebook shows up, or that's where the launcher shows up. A command is a behavior that can be triggered from the JupyterLab interface, for example, from the menu bar, or from the launcher, or from the command palette. The command palette is a keyboard-driven interface for triggering commands. You'll see that in action shortly. And the launcher is that thing that opens up when you have a fresh instance of JupyterLab that has all those kind of icons showing you what your options are to launch. Okay, so first we got to do a little bit of setup. We're going to set up development dependencies on our local machine. We're going to configure Git. And we're going to configure a repository on GitHub. So first, we've got these commands. Bigger? Is that big enough? Okay. So we're going to run micromamba create -- name, and then we're going to give our environment a useful name. and it's going to tell us that we created an empty environment. We don't need to remember this directory. And then we're going to activate our environment. And you should see, once you activate your environment, this nice little parenthetical added to your prompt telling you what environment is active. And then we're going to install some dependencies into the environment. So again, we're just copying this line, installing Python, pip, Node.js, the GitHub command line interface, copier, which is for instantiating the template we're just about to use, and a kind of other transitive dependency that you don't need to worry about. So this should take a second, probably a little bit longer, assuming we're all going to be doing this at the same time. You're going to get prompted yes or no to confirm changes. Go ahead and just press enter. And then when it's done, you should see transaction finished. Okay, I think we're going to move on. If you don't have Git installed, you can run micromamba or conda or mamba, install Git as well. And then you'll have access to Git in the same environment. And if you haven't used Git before, you'll need to do a little bit of initial configuration. So start out with these two git config commands to tell Git who you are and what your email is, and that way when you make a commit, it will correctly attribute it to you. I've already done this, so I'm going to skip these steps. And then you'll need to also tell Git to use main as the default branch name. That's become the current convention. That's what GitHub expects. So we're going to run one more command to tell Git that our default branch is main and not master. And when you do these commands, you should see no output afterwards if they succeed. That's a good thing. And next, we're going to create our repository. So go wherever on your computer you like to store your projects. I have a directory called projects. And then I'm going to put it inside my username. And then create a directory. Well, actually first, make sure you're logged into GitHub. So we're going to use GitHub auth login to do that. GH auth login. You can tell it github.com, HTTPS, yes to authenticate Git with your GitHub credentials, and then log in with the web browser. And at this point, I'm not going to continue because it will show a secret to the whole room. When you click this, it's going to give you a secret token, and then it's going to give you a URL. So you're going to copy that secret token, and then you're going to press enter. It will open GitHub in your browser. If you're logged into GitHub already, you should just need to paste the token. If you're not logged in, you'll need to log in and then paste the token. And if you're already set up with GitHub auth, you don't need to do this step. At the end, you should see a check mark and authentication complete. I don't see any red stickies. I see lots of green stickies. Okay. So now that you're logged into GitHub, you can set up Git to use the authentication that you just entered. That'll set up your local Git command to use that same authentication. So just copy this ghauth setup git command, run it, and then you should be able to use git to talk to GitHub. And then after that, we're going to use the GitHub CLI to also create a repository. So we can copy this command GitHub repo create, then the name of the repository you're going to create, -- public so everyone can see it, and -- clone to also clone the repository to your local machine. This may take a second. Usually it's a little bit faster, but conference Wi-Fi might not be the fastest. Okay, so now we've created our repository, and we can see the URL of the repository that was just created. So you can copy this URL. Or you can click on the URL, maybe control-click depending on the terminal you're using, and that'll open it in your browser. And then we're going to enter that directory we just created. Oops. I'm going to do that again with a different name because I already have this repository. Okay, so once you enter that directory, you should see nothing in it except a hidden .git directory. And we're going to add a little bit of metadata to our repository as well. So we can just copy this command. This will make it so your repository is findable with the keywords JupyterCon 2025 or the keyword JupyterLab extension. And that should be really fast. And again, if you didn't grab your repository's URL in the previous step, you can run ghrepo_view, and that'll display a nice little description of your repository you just created, along with the URL at the end. So we can copy that URL. Okay. And then on the next step, we're going to finally instantiate our template. So at this point, let's talk about what we're going to make. So again, we're going to build an extension. Our extension is going to have a viewer that you can open up from the launcher that will show a couple of public domain images and captions. It will enable the user to interactively display a random image from the collection, and you'll be able to launch it from both the launcher and the command palette. So we're going to start from scratch with the official extension template. There's kind of a big, long command here that I want you all to copy. It's going to pre-fill a couple of answers to questions that it's going to ask you just to make the workflow a little simpler. That's why there's all these arguments. And then once you paste it, you'll be asked just a couple of questions. So I'm going to put in my name, my email, and I'm going to put that URL that I copied in the previous step. Oh, and I overwrote it with all this. Let me start from scratch. So I'll need to scroll up. Find that URL. For some reason, I'm having trouble copying it. Okay, so that's my URL. And then paste it here. And then it should create a whole bunch of files for you. So you can use the ls command to see all the files that you created. So this is everything the extension template has created for us. It's got a README, release instructions, some package metadata and config files. It's got a file for helping manage AI agents if you choose to develop with AI agents. It's got tests. It's got a JavaScript package here in the source directory. It's got a Python package here in the JupyterCon 2025 extension workshop directory. And it's got some GitHub workflow automations for you. So all of that comes with this template. Okay, so the next step is to install our extension in development mode so that we can develop on it, and as it changes, the installed package will reflect those changes. So pip install -- editable. Make sure you have these quotes. They're very important. Quote dot left bracket dev comma test right bracket close quote. This may take a second because it also has to download some stuff. Oh yeah, yeah.
You can edit your one command inside the editor.
Yeah, I do that with Vim mode. Yeah, okay.
Because like with commands, it's kind of people have to copy paste like massive, but like with FC, it's kind of much more useful.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Okay, that's still going. I see a red sticky. Jason, can you help kind of in the middle of this row? Okay, my install is done, and somebody just mentioned that I kind of pasted this giant command. Oh, that's not useful. Oops. And you may not have seen the whole thing, but you do want to copy and paste this. I don't want you typing it, but it should look something like this. Okay, we have a few people still catching up, but we're going to get going, and we'll continue to help you, don't worry. Okay, so once you've done this editable install step, you should see lots of terminal output, and the final line should read, successfully installed a long list of things. Then we need to run 2 commands to tell JupyterLab to register this extension, both on the front end and on the server side. So go ahead and copy these 2 commands. Oh, and you can use this handy little copy button here with any of these code blocks. You can paste them, hit enter. That'll run them both in a row. You should see 2 sets of output. One of them will say installing, removing, symlinking, and then the next one will say enabling, and importantly, you'll see this green OK. Okay, so our extension is installed and registered, but now we also need to build the TypeScript code to JavaScript code so it can run in the browser. And we have this special package manager that we use. It's not important to use this, to know about this, but this is kind of a special version of the Yarn package manager. If you don't know what that is, that's also okay. What's important about this command is we have to do this every time we make a change. So we're going to do jlpm build. And the important thing we should see is Webpack version number compiled successfully in some amount of time. This should be very fast. Okay, so now we're ready to test this extension. It's basically just a hello world extension. So we're going to run the command Jupyter space lab. And that's going to start the Jupyter server. And that should also automatically open a browser window for you. And you'll see the nice JupyterLab launcher and file browser. And you can open up your browser terminal to test that the extension was correctly loaded. Let me jump back to the instructions here. You can press F12 or Command or Control Shift I, or I think Command Option I on a Mac. I don't have a Mac, so please let us know which one was correct. And when you do that, you'll see the console. You may need to click console, this second tab here, to actually see the messages. And usually you'll see some cookie warnings here, which you can ignore. But at the top, you'll see JupyterLab extension, the name of your extension is activated, and then you'll see this object containing data, hello world, this is the so-and-so endpoint. Try visiting me in your browser. So what I want you to do now is copy this text in the quotes, /JupyterCon extension workshop /hello. I apologize that that's hard to read, but I don't know how to zoom in the debugger. Oh, now I do. Okay, so you can copy this text, JupyterCon 2025 extension workshop /hello, and then in your URL bar, delete lab and paste in that text. So what you should see is localhost :8888 /JupyterCon 2025 extension workshop /hello. And now we're directly hitting the server component of our extension. So the extension we just created has a front end and it has a back end. The front end is just saying hello world in the console, the browser console. And the back end is creating this server endpoint that just says hello world as well. But this is just some JSON data that you can hit with your browser. And you can also hit this data from the front end, which we'll get to in a bit. Okay, so at this point, we've gotten started. We've initialized our extension from the template. We've tested that it works. And I want us to all make a git commit together. So in your terminal, you can do git add dot. This is going to tell Git to track everything that we've just added. And then git commit -m for message. And then in quotes, the commit message. I suggest your commit message should be initialized from extension template. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but you can copy all this and paste it. Okay. And I'm going to do this in another terminal so I can keep JupyterLab running. Shoot. Oh, I know why. You shouldn't have to do this. This is just something that I screwed up. I have no idea why this is not working. It's live demos. Source ref spec does not match any. Say again? Yeah, pushing it should create it, I thought. Yeah. That is very strange. Oh, have I not? Let's commit again. Okay, I didn't commit for some reason. Initialize from template. Oh, okay, I see. I hadn't entered the passphrase for my SSH key, and normally it looks different, so I thought I screwed something up. Okay, so once you've committed, you should see a whole bunch of files got created, and then you should be able to push. It needs my passphrase again. And then you should see branch main set up to track origin main. Thanks for your help. Okay, so once you've done a commit, I want us all to do a complete development loop together. So I think doing some trivial change, for example, changing the message from hello world to hello your name is a good trivial change we can all do together. So I'm going to open up the JupyterCon 2025 extension workshop / routes file in my editor. And then I'm going to find the hello world text, and delete it unintentionally. I'm going to replace world with my name. I'm going to write quit. I'm just going to open that up again and highlight that line that I changed. Should be line 15 for you. Okay, and then I'm going to where's my other terminal? Okay, I'm going to close JupyterLab with Control-C, tell it yes to shut down Jupyter, and then I'm going to run JupyterLab again to start the server up again. And then I'm going to go back to this URL JupyterCon 2025 extension workshop / hello, and I'm going to see hello Matt instead of hello world. Okay, so my change worked. I rebuilt. I shut down JupyterLab. I started it again. I tested it in my browser to make sure that the change worked correctly. And now I'm going to do another git commit. In fact, I'm going to copy it from the tutorial. It's not 11:15, it's 10:15, right? Okay. Okay, so we're going to do a git add dot, git commit message, test development loop with a simple change, and then we're going to push. And it keeps asking me for my passphrase, which I'm not used to. So once you've committed successfully, you should see a new commit ID was generated. You should see the number of things that changed. And then once it's pushed, you should again see this kind of main arrow main indicating that your local main has been pushed to the remote main. How are we all doing? I don't see any red stickies. You okay? All right. Okay, so now we've got the tools to do a development loop. That's what every change that we make is going to look like. We're going to start by making a change to the code. We're going to shut down the JupyterLab server. We're going to rebuild the extension with JLPM build. And then we're going to start JupyterLab with JupyterLab. But we still just have a hello world extension, and we want to build something a little more interesting than that. But unfortunately, we're going to be in hello world land for just a little bit longer. We want to have a way to create a widget that says hello world and then launch it from the launcher or the command palette. So the launcher, again, is this screen. We'd like to see another button here for our extension. And we'd also like to be able to do Control-Shift-C and then type in the name of our extension, which is going to be random image something something, and then it'll come up. It's not there right now, so let's fix that. We've got a break in 10 minutes. So I want to take a look and see how much time this is going to take. This is 20 minutes. We expect it to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, maybe I can do the first part and then I can do the long part. I'm doing this part, right?
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I can do the first part.
Okay, we'll go for 10 minutes and then take a break. All right.
Okay, how many people successfully have written a JupyterLab extension now? Ooh, how many people have hit a hiccup? Okay, we have a few hiccups. Actually, maybe we should use this couple of minutes just to take any quick questions that people have. Any questions that we can resolve before the break so that by the time of the break, you can say, I have a JupyterLab extension that I've written and it works and it loads in JupyterLab. Any questions? Or should we just slow down just a little bit? I need a little bit of feedback. Konstantin, you're nodding your head. Do we need just a few minutes for people to, we want to get to the point where you can run JLPM build and have a JupyterLab extension, have your extension show up in JupyterLab before we move on. Do we need to slow down? All right, I need a little bit of feedback here. How many people think, let's slow down, come help me, I'll do whatever I need to do. How many people are like ready to move on? I've run the build and everything. Okay, so there's like okay, and then the rest of the half of the people, oh, actually that was more like half the people that are ready to move on. So maybe we'll take that as a vote to move on, but we have some floaters in the room that can help with any problems to help people do the next part. I think what I'll do is I'll show you a slightly different dev loop that maybe is a little bit more intuitive or easier, or at least just different, so you can see it's done. It can be done in different ways. I actually have my JupyterLab running right here, and you can see in JupyterLab I can make terminals, which means that once I activate my environment, I can run JLPM build right from within JupyterLab, which is running the terminal, just like if I was just running the terminal on my computer. And you'll see there's the build. And actually, if I go into the index.ts, so on the left-hand side, I've opened up JupyterLab in my extension directory here. So I have all those files. And I can just, change something. I'll save it. And I'll run JLPM build again. I can just put it down here so we can have both up on the screen at the same time. And you can see what I can do is it's now changed JupyterLab, the JupyterLab extension. It's run the build again. And in order for that change to appear in the browser, all I have to do is refresh the browser. So now it loaded the new JavaScript into the browser. And the change should be there. Let's look. I'll inspect, look at the console, and I see a bunch of errors about cookies and stuff like that, probably because it's localhost, but you can see right here, instead of JupyterLab extension, it now says Jupyter extension. So that's a full dev loop right there. I've made a change in the index.ts, I've run JLPM build, and I've just refreshed the browser, which loads the new JavaScript in, and we're good. So you may find that a simpler workflow for now. Now, a little bit later, we'll be working on the server, so you actually have to restart the server. But for just front-end changes, all you have to do is refresh the browser, actually. Okay. Because of the time, we only have a couple of minutes of time. Maybe I'll just mention a couple of lines of code here that you see, just so that you understand what every line of code here is doing. A lot of people didn't have JavaScript experience. This is just the import syntax for JavaScript, and same here. And then this is the meat of the matter right here, right? This plugin. This colon here, TypeScript is what we're actually working in. It's a typed variant of JavaScript. So the colon is just introducing a type. And so const is declaring a variable name, and we're saying the variable name type is this Jupyter frontend plugin with a void parameter, type parameter. And the ID is an ID known to the system, so it should be unique across any plugin. The description is a user visible description. Auto start true just means when JupyterLab starts up, this extension should be activated. And you don't have to have that. A lot of extensions will have the auto start true. And then the activation function is the thing that's called. And you'll notice that it's automatically passed in this app object here. So every plugin is automatically given a JavaScript object that represents the JupyterLab app. And there's various things that you can call on an app.whatever in order to interact with the JupyterLab app itself. And then, of course, there's the console log, et cetera. And then we just export this JavaScript object. This JavaScript object here is the plugin. This is what we mean when we say a plugin is sort of the basic unit of extensibility in JupyterLab. You create JavaScript objects like this, and you export them. Now, the question is, how does JupyterLab know about this plugin? And the answer is back here in this metadata file, this package.json metadata file. So let me just open up the actual file. The package.json file is a metadata file for JavaScript packages. It contains a bunch of metadata like the name of the JavaScript package, the version of the JavaScript package, keywords, et cetera. But the important part for us is way down here is this JupyterLab key. And you'll see in here, we say the extension is true. The extension metadata is true. This is what tells JupyterLab, which is dealing with this JavaScript package, that, hey, there's an extension inside of this JupyterLab package, and up here, it knows the main file is index.js, which is generated from index.ts, the file we're editing. And when we say export default right here, it says, okay, index.ts, that's the TypeScript version. It's going to get compiled to index.js. Index.js is our main file in this JavaScript package, and it exports this JavaScript object, this plugin right here. And then the metadata file, the package.json, says, hey, the main file to look at for this package is index.js. And JupyterLab says, oh, in this package.json, I see this JupyterLab key that says we have an extension. So what JupyterLab does is it looks for the package.jsons that say they're an extension, then it imports that index.js, and whatever is exported by the index.js, which in this case is our plugin, that's what JupyterLab knows is a plugin, and it loads it up. And then if the auto start is true, it calls the activate function and passes the app object into the activate function. So that's sort of a high level of how these extensions, how these plugins are started and how they're called from in JupyterLab. All right, we've got 3 minutes until the break. I just wanted to cover just a little bit of that. Oh, I'll give you one more tip. If you have a JavaScript extension that you're going to be continually modifying, you can make the modification and run JLPM build, or you can run JLPM watch. Okay, so what, JLPM watch. So what this is going to do is it's actually going to watch for changes on your files. So, and it's just going to automatically run the JLPM build anytime a file changes. So if you come up here, for example, you'll see I've run JLPM watch. I'm just going to leave that running in my terminal. And up here, I'm going to say a new, improved JupyterLab extension and save it. And you'll notice the build already ran. So then I can refresh to pull the new JavaScript into JupyterLab. And you'll see that in my console I now have, let me refresh here. Where did it go? Am I in the right place? Oh, I just did it. I did it in the description. I wanted to do it in the console log here. New, improved Jupyter extension. Let me save it. It's going to automatically run JLPM build for me. And then I just refresh. And you'll see I have, the new console.log. So JLPM watch is a way to quickly do an iteration cycle. You don't have to manually run JLP build. It's just going to watch for changes in your file and automatically run the JLPM build for you. So you can make a change, refresh, see the change. Make a change, refresh, see the change. All right, I think that brings us up to our break, right? The break is at 10:30? Is that right? Okay, so let's pause and take, Matt, how long is the break? 30 minutes. Wow, okay, we have a 30-minute break for you to catch up. Or go enjoy yourself. And we'll be back in 30 minutes.